I'll start by popping a couple of slides on the screen because the last thing you want to be doing for the next 7 minutes is looking at my shiny head. Before we kick off as well, the question you might be thinking to yourself is not about how I sell to decision makers, but is this a virtual background or a fake tree? It's the latter, so hopefully I can put your mind at ease with that. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about selling to decision makers. First, my name's Gary. I'm an AE at Gong, based out of Dublin, and joined it earlier this year in July. So a little bit about me before I start. I began my sales career working as an SDR in Citrix before moving up the chain as an AE and then into Glassdoor, and spent most recently the last 4 years at Dropbox in a couple of different sales roles. So reasonable bit of experience. Today, what I'm bringing you is some insight into how we go about selling to decision makers, sharing some practical advice based off my own experience and backing that up with some interesting data from our team over at Gong Labs as well. The first tip that I've got for you, the first piece of advice is when we're within these conversations with our prospects and potential customers, it's really important that you tie your value proposition to a strategic initiative and not just a tactical problem. So what do I mean by this? A good way to think about it is what are the 3 to 5 things that you'd see in a CEO's slide deck, or what topics are actually being discussed at board level? So what are the whole company driving towards? Some of the ways I typically question to uncover these types of strategic initiatives are, let's say I'm talking to someone at C-level, I'll say, if we remove Gong from the equation today, what are the top priorities your organization must deliver on this year? Or another one I might ask is, when you think about the next couple of months or quarters, what comes to mind as the number 1 priority or the top 2, in a sense of, if we don't execute upon this, we failed as a go-to-market organization? By tying your solution to those problems, you're going to become much more relevant. And some of the examples you might uncover around strategic initiatives could be, we want to increase market share in a new region, or we want to successfully transition from a single to a multi-product company. So really important factors in the company's growth. And if you can attach yourselves to those, you're going to put yourself in a really good position to get that deal. What you want to avoid is diving into feature benefit talk track. So Octavia mentioned it in her previous presentation. We all do it early on, but what you're going to do if you jump into feature benefits is you're going to lose the attention of your prospect. So tie it to that strategic initiative and you're on the right path. The next tip I've got for you is to build your business case with customer stories and not just ROI. So what do I mean by that? The tip is actually inspired by some of our interesting data from Gong Labs. And the research that we found there is there can be a negative correlation between your win rate and focusing too strongly on ROI within your sales cycle. So numbers are great, but most of us as humans relate to stories. So learn off your customer stories for each use case or problem that your company can solve for. And how I do this in my own role is I'll drop them into conversations throughout the process. Let's take an example of someone who says that they're focused on increasing BDR productivity, okay? I'll share with them a challenge that Aircall had in EMEA when they were pretty much operating in the dark. The team were working off reps and managers, hypotheticals and role play calls and not reality. So what they needed was a way to cut out the noise and the opinions and get right to the data. By partnering with us, what they were able to achieve was immediate access to what was really happening in the calls and the pipeline, and the new data back knowledge enabled the EMEA team to improve their onboarding, coaching, and positively impact the rest of the org. So nice, clear and concise, a challenge, an outcome. Don't go too heavy on the numbers. Presenting ROI in your customer conversations actually awakens the wrong part of their brain, the logical part, and that opens them up to argue with your assumptions and really pick holes in it. So remember that people buy on emotion and they're going to justify with logic. Third piece of advice comes to questioning. We all want to know what the best discovery conversation looks like. How many questions do I ask? What questions will lead me to the right results? Do your research before you go into these meetings, okay? We analyzed thousands of sales calls with the C-suite in particular, and we looked at close rates compared to the number of questions asked by the seller. The outcome, less is more. Asking too many questions actually decreases your win rate. Essentially, once you get to 8, you hit a significant decline in win rate. The golden number is being 4. So there's an expectation that you come to the meetings prepared and you don't want to end up making it feel like an interrogation. It's also good to remind yourself that even 15 minutes to chat is a tall order when it comes to selling to senior leaders. C-level execs calendars are going to be back to back. You're lucky if you get those 15 minutes. So when you get that coveted time, don't waste it. Focus on what they care about most so they can give your deal the green light. And there's 3 questions that you should always be prepared to answer that are going to be top of mind for your DMs. The first one is, how does this deal affect my strategic goals? Tying back to the first piece of advice. What's the time to value for your product, platform, offering? And then who's going to own this? So remember those, have them answered, and then you're going to be in a really good position for those deals. One last piece of advice as well. Something that I've learned recently is around understanding the difference between role and title. If you go into these conversations and just assume the most senior person in the room is the decision maker, or the most senior title is the decision maker, it could harm your deal because you're going to get them more involved than they potentially need to be. But all that does is put an extra set of eyes on your deal, and you're going to risk offending the true decision maker. Think about it this way. Great leaders actually delegate more than they decide. So don't go by the title, rather just by the role in the deal. What you ideally want to do is find someone who's close enough to feel the pain that your solution could potentially solve, and have them, and they also have the decision-making authority. Hopefully those are 3 useful tips for you. I would absolutely recommend following Gong on LinkedIn for more sales advice for ICs, reps, frontline managers, and leads. There's a lot in there to take home and some really good resources. So thanks for having me. And yeah, that's me.